let's talk about baseball because I'm you follow it closely. I know you follow the Cardinals closely. From my outside perspective, I'm just shocked, dumbfounded. What's the right word here? That here we are, and they still haven't come to a deal. I'm gonna throw this to you. Like, what is happening? Are they not aware that you're just like, I feel like you're just losing fans every day. You're losing momentum every day this goes on.
Yeah. So just for folks, so we're recording this. It's 11:46 Central Time. Now, this is the big day for Major League Baseball. So when we release this, maybe I'll be totally wrong, or you'll be wrong, or you'll be right, because we might know by tonight if a deal is done, because Major League Baseball basically said if a deal is not made by February 28th, they'll have to cancel regular season games. Now, look, if they come to an agreement in 3 days, are they going to say, all right, we'll do a couple 7-inning doubleheaders. We'll make it work. We'll get to our 162. But I don't think they're very close, to be honest with you. And I could be wrong, and this will come out, but I don't think they're going to come to an agreement tonight. I don't even think the owners really care, because that first month of baseball, April, it's bad weather. There's lots of rainouts. Opening day is always fun, but until school ends and the kids are out of school in the summer, that's when baseball teams really make all their money, especially July and August. So I don't think the owners honestly care that much if they don't play 162, if they play a 144 game schedule. But I think this is really pissing off fans. And as you said, I'm a big time baseball fan. I love baseball more than any other sport. And even I don't care that much, to the point where I guess what I'm trying to say is, through COVID, you kind of said, do I really need baseball? Do I really need sports? There's so many great shows on Netflix. There's so many great streaming shows. I got 2 kids. I've learned to live without baseball. And this is coming from me, a hardcore baseball fan. So imagine folks that don't even really care as much, or they're casual baseball fans. Yeah. I just think they're losing fans every day. Yeah. It's the whole billionaires versus millionaires. I do think Rob Manfred, the commissioner, is terrible for the game. And I just say that because, and I've interviewed him before, but every time he opens his mouth, I feel like baseball loses fans. He just never says the right thing. Right. He talks about how, baseball is not very profitable. If these owners, if they would have put their money into the stock market, they would have made just as much or more. All of these billionaires, they're all lining up to own baseball teams. That just is so stupid. So stupid. It's not liquid. Okay. But all these folks that bought the teams 20, 25, 30 years ago, they all bought these teams for like 100 million, 150 million, whatever, 200 million. And good for them. They're great business people. But now they're worth 2 billion, right? They're able to sell them for 2.2 billion, for 1.8 billion. So don't cry poor like baseball is not profitable. That just does not, that does not play well.
No. And so he made that stock market comment?
Oh yeah.
So what was the point he was trying to make?
Well, it was actually, so this happened on our radio station. I want to say it was either last year or the year before. It might've been the COVID year, but the chairman of the Cardinals, Bill DeWitt Jr., who, by the way, he's a great guy, but he said to one of our radio co-hosts, Frank Cusimano, a friend of mine, he basically said, baseball is not very profitable. And whatever the exact quote is, you can look it up, but that was basically what he said. And what he meant by that was year to year operating income, which potentially is true with some teams. Now, the Atlanta Braves are one team that they have to release their books. And just recently here, it was something like $100 million profit in 2021, I believe, coming off 2020, which was weird because you had 60 games, you had no fans. But I don't believe that these teams are all really losing money. Maybe a couple of them here and there, but you have revenue sharing. Your asset is worth way more than it ever was when you bought it. You can borrow against that. And there's different ways to hide revenue, I feel like. Yeah. So you have gate revenue, you have concessions. I mean, all these teams now, they're following this model, and I don't know exactly who started it, but the Cardinals have Ballpark Village. Okay. The Cardinals own Ballpark Village, which is right across the street from Busch Stadium. Now they have seats to watch the game, but they also have restaurants, bars. They have now apartments. So folks can live in an apartment with a pool that's overlooking Busch Stadium. So you can actually live in your apartment and watch the game from your apartment. So is that baseball revenue, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's all revenue. It's tied to baseball, but technically, is that the type of revenue they're fighting for right now with the players? And you have gambling money that's about to come in. Like, they're going to make tons of money on gambling. So I'm on the player side in this one, and the players need a win. The players got ran over the last couple CBAs, so I think they want to win. And from that standpoint, here we are, like probably 7-8 hours from when the deadline is technically tonight, and I don't think they're going to come to an agreement.
Yeah, I mean, it's what is it? It's 12, so 12:50 Eastern right now. It would be, by the way, it would be hilarious if they're like landmark deals. It happens in like 5 hours, and then we're just gonna play what you just said on loop for the next 6 months. But I told you this before. I was most into baseball when I lived in Boston, when I was single, when I was in my 20s, and I would watch on TV, and we had not season tickets, but like a 10-game pack in the bleachers, Fenway. I mean, I was into it. And over time, getting busy, getting older, for me, it's fallen to my lower position. So I would be NBA, NFL, then baseball. Still love going to games. I'll go to anything. But in terms of, am I watching on TV? Am I even trying to? It's fallen all the way back. So for me, when I watch this, because call me the casual fan, I do a calendar math in my head, and I go, okay, you're going to take baseball away? Like, let's say you take it away for the whole year. You're not like, I'm not too phased. I'm going to get NBA playoffs and finals that gets me to what? Sometime in June.
Yep.
Okay, fine. Then I just take July and August off, and we're back into football. Like NFL, even college in August. I mean, my cycle's ready to reboot, like, so, right. Like, I just think, like, you look at it from afar, and yes, summertime is the best time to go to baseball games. No doubt about it. But no one that I know of would side with the owners and go, yeah, these poor guys, they're really just struggling for cash. It's really hard business to be in. I'm like, I just don't buy it. You can spin it however you want, with 30 LLCs and show me the losing one. I don't buy it. And to be honest, most of these people that get to those positions, unless it's old money, that's a whole separate thing, because those are different kinds of people. But if you're a new money guy who you built up a business and you bought these teams, you know how to run successful businesses. If this thing was such a detriment to you, you would have gotten out years ago. You're not an idiot. Like, you made millions and billions of dollars doing something. There's no reason you would keep it and watch it drain you financially. Like, it just would not happen. You would get out, right?
Yeah.
So that logic alone makes me be like, you're done. I don't even want to hear these arguments. Sure, maybe your margins are tighter than 20 years ago. Then again, I don't care, because prices to the consumer are at the highest they've ever been. So you can't have it both ways. I mean, fine, you're losing money, then why don't you cut ticket prices, concessions for everybody to come in and see what happens, right?
That's
like
where,
you can't do it. You can't just be that, like, all about me person. So I'm with you. Well, I haven't gone into all the details of what they're trying to work on the CBA, but it really doesn't even matter. I'm like, go with the players, go with the players, go with the players, go with the players.
right. And that's where I think it's funny. And you could turn this into a broader conversation and kind of a political conversation, where it always fascinates me when workers, whether you're a worker and you work on the assembly line, or we're talking about workers in baseball, but it's hard to look at them as the same type of worker that's in a union, that's in IBW, because these guys are making 20, 25, 30, $35 million a year. But I run 4 YouTube pages. So I look at a lot of comments, and I'm not saying that you should always draw a lot from comments from social media, but some of them are pretty funny. And I'm telling you, the amount of times I hear folks write or say, oh, these greedy players, what, 500,000 a year is not enough. What, $25 million a year is not enough. But I never hear that from the owners. Like, hey, is 2 billion not enough? Right. And I just think you could spin this politically, where I feel like in this country, there's some working class folks that have convinced themselves that they shouldn't get things like a higher wage or health insurance and things like that. Like, no, that would bankrupt corporate America. And I'm just thinking, like, I could understand if you were the CEO thinking that, but I do feel like there's these people that are the workers that would benefit more from the higher wages, let's say, the more
100%
vacation days, the better health insurance. And weirdly, I just think in America, we've kind of convinced ourselves to just like always be sucking up to the power elite, whether that's corporations, whether that's the owner and owners of sports teams. I just find it funny because it's like, oh, what, you're getting $30 million to pitch a baseball? And I'm thinking, well, what, you're getting $2 billion to own the people that pitch the baseballs? Like, you don't complain about that?
Exactly. Because everything is relative to the current market, period. Right? Market rates. Doesn't matter what it was in 1971. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. It's market rates, and this is supply and demand. So if you are at that level of any job, it really doesn't matter. But if you are in a certain position and you look to your left and your right and you go, well, I know my performance. If so-and-so is getting paid X and so-and-so is getting paid Y, but statistically I'm better, I've done more. In theory, I drive more revenue. So I need to be getting paid than both of those people. And I'm going to make a case and push to do it. Of course I would. But to your point about companies, and I think that analogy is good for the fans. I think they do a good job of the big business and the poor owners, and he's just, he or she's just here to, keep the tradition alive. And it's like, I don't know about that. I really don't know about that. The best example I could give you is when I lived in LA, there's a huge refinery. I believe it's just an oil refinery, I guess. It's huge. Right south of the airport. So you pretty much would see it when you land in LAX. It's right there. And there's some cool stuff around there, but what they did is they build up, because it's massive, and they build up like these security fences, but then they cover them with big trees, right? And even in one part of the thing, I think it's Exxon, and one part of the thing you see, they built like a park, this big, massive park for families, and there's swing sets and all these. Meanwhile, you're 50 feet from who knows what's happening, right? Is it how much pollutants? Is it new? It could be nuclear. Who knows? But there's the image right there of like, to me, the idea of corporations in a lot of ways. It's like, don't look over there. Just look what we built for you here, the swing set, and come on, we're going to take care of you, and we're a family. So you're right. Like, if you don't look around and you're like, well, what is the thing here? Like, what's really happening? It's very easy to be like, yeah, but they take care of me, and I depend on the company. And it's like, look, the company, if we're using that as just this general idea, the company by design wants to pay you the least and have you do the most.
100%. And
the people on the top want to keep the most, and a lot of times do the least.
Yeah. And that's where what's funny or interesting to me about baseball is, so you have this owners versus players. And so again, it's billionaires versus millionaires. But what's funny is, if you really dig into it, it's also really owners versus owners, because these owners that are more mid-market teams that don't want to spend a lot, that want to keep their payroll down, now you have two big dogs and you really have one big dog. And for years, we always talked about, okay, Yankees, Red Sox, Dodgers, but Yankees payroll is always crazy. Well, guess what? That whole default salary cap that baseball has with the luxury tax, teams like the Yankees now and the Red Sox are actually trying to stay below that. The two teams that are trying to crush that are the LA Dodgers. And now you have Steve Cohen, who owns the Mets. And it's funny because you're talking about corporate America and all this. And I'm not saying Steve Cohen's a bad guy, but he's basically Bobby Axelrod. If you watch Billions, he's a hedge fund guy, that had something like a $2 billion fine. He had to pay something close to $2 billion for insider trading, right? Now he owns the Mets. He's got deep pockets. He's trying to spend, which I think is great for baseball. He went out and paid Max Scherzer, whatever it was, $130 million for 3 years. He's trying to buy a World Series, which normally I don't love that, but he's trying to basically kind of throw a wrench into the cheap owners who are all like, oh, we don't want to spend. And now the owners, so part of their negotiation is really against Steve Cohen. They want to keep this luxury tax as low as possible so that Steve Cohen will have to pay a higher tax every time he basically tries to outspend everybody. So not only are the majority of these owners trying to pay the players as little as possible, which I get because that's negotiating, but also they're trying to kind of scheme around the big pocketed owners that want to splash money around, and they want to make it more fair for them. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, it's a constant, everyone's looking at their own interests. And then if you can't, I'll be the owner for a second. And I'm saying, well, look, right. Everyone's got their hand out. I can't just like give away money, oh, sure, I'll pay you this. I'll pay you this. The player's job is to make themselves so valuable that you have to, that you can't have that argument of like, well, I can't. It's like, well, if you want that player, you have to pay that. And these other things about keeping guys in the minors for a certain amount of time and holding them, like all those games and tricks. At some point as an owner, you may have to say like, let's look at these things. Where am I willing to lose to win? Because I may have to just concede some things. That's negotiation. I may just have to say, all right, fine. As much as they like to wrap it in the blanket of American tradition and families, and it's like, okay, cool. But it's not that. It's a business. So be a business and keep it going, because it looks horrific when you do this again and again. I do remember the old lockouts, and it just seems like with such a cycle with baseball. If you ask me, like, name a sport that is most conducive or where lockouts are most prevalent, what would you say? I'd be like baseball.
Yeah, baseball. I think baseball, because 94 was such a huge story. Now hockey has had two labor issues, but
they've all had them, but I don't know why, but I think about baseball.
No, you're right. Hockey actually, because I almost always side with the players, hockey actually had to figure out a way to make it more fair for the owners, and they have. And look, you have hockey players making $10.5 million like Jonathan Taves and Patrick Kane. They're not making baseball money, but also I think hockey's model is more fair. It's basically a 50-50 split of revenue between the owners and the players. And hockey doesn't generate as much revenue as the NBA, as the NFL, as Major League Baseball. I mean, Major League Baseball has 162 games. So yeah, when you say labor strife, I do feel like baseball comes to mind first, because 94 was such a huge story. Then also baseball is really stupid, because baseball they do this publicly. They always negotiate through the media. And right now I get it, but even during COVID, if there was ever a time to just shut up and to not leak all of your information, while everybody, people are in the hospital, some people are dying, people are losing their wages.
By the way, there's a war going on,
now, there's a little thing called a war going on, and it just looks petty to me. And baseball always seems petty because they're always doing all their negotiating through the media. And I think that's really stupid.
It's like when, and this just happened a couple months ago. It's literally the same as when you ever get the thing where your cable company or wherever you stream is like losing a channel, and then they tell you this channel's going away because they can't, come to terms. And then please visit our website and vote, keep ESPN on Sling or whatever. I'm like, dude, I don't work for you. And I pay a certain price. And when I signed up, you told me I'd be getting these channels. Like, don't tell me like I'm involved with your negotiations with ESPN. Well, by the way, you're both making tons of money. Like it's such a bad look to kick that internal issue back to the fan or the customer or whoever, isn't it? I totally agree. It's like, it looks so lame. It's like, dude, handle your business, take care of your house behind the scenes, and come to an agreement. And really, I should never know about it. I shouldn't even be involved. And maybe it went to the 12th hour and you guys were screaming, across the table, but I don't care. I certainly don't want emails from you bombarding me and telling me to visit websites and vote or whatever, complain to Time Warner. Like, no, dude, I am out. I don't, unless you're going to pay me, you're going to write me a check for $5,000 to do it. I'm listening, but otherwise don't do that.
Right. And that's, by the way, what you just brought up is another part of baseball's problem. I hate to admit this, but so I had DirecTV back in the day, switched to, I was going to either go to Hulu or YouTube TV, ended up going with YouTube TV. This was like in 2020-ish. I swear 6 to 9 months in, what happens? So Bally Sports buys all the Fox Sports properties.
That's right.
And they're not on Hulu and they're not on YouTube TV. And I had just went through switching, you buy all the new crap and the new boxes, you send your DirecTV boxes back to FedEx or whatever. Then they drop really the only cable channel I care about, which is now Bally Sports Midwest, because they have the Cardinals and the Blues games and SLU basketball. And honestly, I'm like, I'm tired of this. I don't want to switch again. So I've gone now 1.5 years. Now I can watch it on my phone. There are different ways to watch it. I'm usually back when I was working in TV, I'm always watching all the sports, but just because of inconvenience, I haven't switched back because I was tired of it. Like I'm tired of switching. And this is somebody who loves sports and loves baseball. Imagine somebody who doesn't care as much. There's no way they're going to try to find your product. That's how baseball is losing even more people by never figuring it out in terms of TV.
Yeah, they had the similar setup in LA where to watch Lakers, it was Spectrum Sports. And then they wanted you to have Time Warner Cable exclusively to get it. So you couldn't get it streaming. You couldn't even add it if you had Sling, which we had for live TV. So it's like, I can't even get it. I can't even pay someone to get it to watch Lakers games. And at the time, Clippers were on Fox Sports. Now, Bally's or whatever. And then they took those away too. I'm like, that's like, if I was a hardcore Lakers fan and I live in LA, I'm like, you can't make me sign up for one cable provider to get games. Like, what is it? Like, what is that?
Yeah. How about letting your product get to the most people possible and actually grow your game? That's another thing where, to me, they're short-sighted because they're trying to make the most possible money with one cable provider or get your subscription fee up. But how many customers are you losing? Right? You're like, oh, I got to win the deal. I'm going to make sure they come back. Okay. Well, maybe in the last 2 years, you just lost 15% of your customers because of the way that you made it so difficult for people to watch your sport.
I think it's like short-sighted long. So this is great. We're just venting right now. This is good. You know what else I hate? No. But I think it's short versus long-sighted because that current group of, whoever's on that team, sure, they secure that money, that TV deal, the exclusive rights, whatever. And I'm sure in the short run, they're like high-fiving, like, look at the numbers. Look at this is great. But bigger picture, if I want families to grow up glued to this sport, to this team, they better have it on their TV and they better have access to it. And if you want the next generation to grow up, oh, I grew up, we watched every Lakers game, da, da, da. Oh, and then when I had a kid, well, we watched. You can't do that and go, there's not going to be a story like, luckily for our family, we're Spectrum Cable subscribers. So, my grandfather was a Spectrum Cable subscriber. Now my son who's older, he's a it's never going to work like that. So the loyalty is not going to be there. So I think, what do I know? I don't own a sports team, but to me, a priority would be this needs to be accessible in the local market. People that live here, I need them all to be able to see it. Right? Not for, nothing's free anymore. So you got to pay for some kind of service, but it better be available in all the different services.
Right. And what's so funny is, so we're talking about the CBA, and we just talked about watching baseball on TV. Yeah. And what baseball is really not even tackling, they are a little bit with the whole tanking draft lottery situation, but what they're really not even addressing in the CBA, which in my opinion is their biggest problem, is the watchability and the excitement level of the sport in terms of changing the game, tweaking the rules, whether it's banning the shift, whether it's just trying to have more athleticism, more balls in play versus walks, strikeouts, and all that. So baseball's fighting over all these things. They're eventually going to get back and play. And still, one of their biggest issues, arguably their biggest issue, is that the sport is boring to a lot of young people. And they're not even really focusing on that.
Yeah. Well, who has time to focus on that when you're when you're sitting there arguing for 3 to 4 months? I know. All right. So that was fantastic. Do you feel better? I feel a little bit better.
I feel great. I feel great. I love complaining. I love pretending like I would do all the right things if I was the head of the Players Association, or if I was an owner. You know, once I became an owner and I was worth $2 billion, you know, I would be different. I would want to give my money away. Like, I wouldn't try to make more money. I would just basically give it away. I would want the players to win. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to become a owner of a professional team, and you watch my exclusive TV rights deal with a small Japanese company that no one has heard of or can get access to. All right, let's go to this, Charlie. I was talking a little bit about the Lakers randomly, really, but this one caught my eye. I don't know if this was yesterday or the day before, but LeBron James, Russell Westbrook, I don't know if AD was involved or not, but these guys were talking back to hecklers. They were engaging I'm talking as the ball, you know, is getting it. Maybe they're in a TV timeout, and there's this one little clip on Twitter where LeBron's going right back at the guy, like, what do you know about basketball kind of conversation, and then gets the ball, inbounds it, and the play starts. Is that a good look? I mean, I already know the answer to this, but is that a good look for someone of his stature, of their stature on that team?
The answer is emphatically no, but I'm glad he did it, because LeBron James always makes everything entertaining. And I'm a big LeBron James fan. I'm from Ohio. It gets harder and harder to defend him, not just on the court, I'm saying, but like, because he's always saying stuff. He's always doing odd stuff. Taco Tuesday. He gets real political, which, again, I don't really care, but I know a lot of people will target him for that if they don't agree with him.
Right.
But also, he's a millennial. I always say this about LeBron James, and I really like LeBron James, but he's a millennial in the sense that you would think, when you're arguably the greatest basketball player of all time, he's right up there, him or MJ, whatever. I'm not trying to get into that debate, but he's so up there. You would think he wouldn't have to tell people how good he is, right? But he still feels the need to do that in press conferences. Remember that famous picture where he's like in the pool and he's like this on Instagram? He's like, I can't believe how great my life is. And it's like, dude, you're LeBron James. We know how good your life is. And then there was another time that he passed some list, like maybe it was 30,000 points or something like that, whatever it was. I can't remember. But like on Instagram, he made a graphic kind of congratulating himself for this landmark. I'm like, you don't have to do that. The media does that for you. You don't make your own graphic, right? You're LeBron James. We know you did that. Let someone else make the graphic for you.
Yeah, but social media is built for the self-congratulatory speeches.
Yes.
I mean, everybody gets to, you know, make the award, label it, hand it to themselves, and then turn their phone on and accept that made up given award. It's fantastic, really. Listen, I do commercials, right? You know this. I do voiceover and I do on-camera commercials. I've been doing it for a little bit. The amount of speeches that come through when an actor's booked, like, so, and don't get me wrong, I'll post like, hey, you know, booked this spot, because like, hey, it's what you do. I mean, you got to take some pride in booking work. It's hard enough to book it, right? But sometimes, I mean, it's 5 paragraphs of the journey, you know, the people doubted me type speech. And it's like, and the payoff is what? You know, you got a 15-second spot for, you know, Purina dog food. I mean, like, it's not LeBron James level of, hey, I made it. Like, he made it. So I'm going to give LeBron a pass, because if anyone should be doing that stuff, it's him, not the person with the dog food commercial. So I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to disagree with you here. And I'm going to say LeBron's allowed to do it because he's in this other stratosphere. What I don't want is me or you going down that path and, and, you know, writing basically a short story on our latest achievement. I think we got to be careful.
You're right about that. And I don't do that, but I have seen this with especially recruiting. They used to cover it a lot. So you'd have a big recruit, football, basketball. You'd follow them of, oh, where are they going to go and all that. And now what kids do on Twitter and Instagram is they tweet out their offers. Oh, I'm so blessed to get an offer from LSU. So blessed to get an offer. And then like guys that have offers from everybody. I'm so blessed to have an offer from Bradley. It's like, dude, we know you're going to get a Bradley offer. You have a freaking Duke offer. You don't need to tell us about all your offers. And then, hey guys, tune in at 2 p.m. on Instagram. I'm going to tell you my top 12 schools.
Oh,
like,
they do that.
Tell me when you've narrowed it down to maybe 3. Like, I'm going to release my top 8. And then, oh, by the way, I've seen this a million times. Oh, here's my top 12. Here's my top 8. Here's my top 5, top 3. They choose a school that wasn't even in the top 12 because like Deion Sanders now is getting all these players to go to what? Jackson State.
Yeah.
Never on the radar. Oh, like we would cover this like, oh, dude, Florida State and Mizzou is in his top 2. And then he picks Alabama, whatever it is. And now I hate to say this because I'm for all the kids that, hey, you're not the D1 guys. You're just grinding. But when you're like, I've accepted a preferred walk-on status at Illinois State. You know, I'm going to continue my education and play soccer at Illinois Wesleyan. And like, I'm not trying to make fun of them, but that's not really a scholarship, right? You're going to school and it's all good. I don't know. Maybe I would have done that back in the day too, but I think we're doing a little too much of this.
Right. Well, but you know, this is like the modern version of reality TV. So as crazy as that used to be, and you'd watch all the spinoffs and versions of it after Real World, you know, I would just explode it into what else can we make reality TV? I mean, I would look at that. You'd probably look at all those things that started happening, being like, what is this? Who watches this? But if they're getting the viewers, they're getting the eyeballs, it's only going to make more people want to try to do it. So that soccer player, maybe their stream only has, 8 viewers currently attending, but hey, they're trying to do it. I don't think anybody should be making such a big deal of this top 5, top 3, right? Do one video where you announce where you're going. I think that's cool. But what is this like lead me down like The Bachelor, the final rose or whatever? Like, I mean, what is that? What's happening?
And by the way, it's even worse now with the transfer portal, because let's say you have a really good high school kid. Let's say he's a sophomore in high school. So you have 2 or 3 solid years of speculating where he goes to college.
Right.
Then he announces, oh, it's a big deal. He goes to Ohio State. He goes to Mizzou. Okay, guess what happens? He gets there. He immediately transfers, right? So 3 years of, hey, he's at Mizzou. He transfers after 1 semester, makes no impact whatsoever. And then, hey, I'm gonna enter the transfer portal. And now I'm going to continue to tell you the other offers I got in the transfer portal. Like we're doing it every year now. Dude, I just did your announcement where you said you're going to Ohio State. Then you transferred. And now you're going to do it every year because you're going to keep transferring. I'm sorry. That's where Shark Tank, I'm out.
Yeah, it's a lot. But if you're 18, 19 years old and you're getting attention by doing it.
Yeah, that's true.
If you push the button, you get attention. It's like a psych experiment, right? Like if you push it, you'll get attention. You think the kid's going to stop pushing it? I mean, he's like, oh, this is all right. This is cool. This is cool. This is cool. Here's the real study. And I'm not wishing ill on anybody, but the real study is that guy end up being divorced 3 times? Like, is it a commitment issue? Is that going to follow him, or is he going to outgrow this lack of commitment? I don't know. That would be the study I'd want to see 30 years from now.
No, I think that's a great point. And I bet you kids that transfer within high schools, now it's a big thing to transfer within AAU programs. I don't have the data, but I think those folks that can't even choose a high school and an AAU program, they're probably transferring a lot when they get to college. And maybe with the wives down the road, they're also they're gonna have their top 3 wives, and then they're gonna
It's grass is greener. It's a vicious cycle. It's a vicious cycle. All right. So let's wrap this thing up. Here's what I got for you. I'm going to pull up the current NBA finals odds.
Nice. I like this.
Okay. I will place this bet when I get to Vegas. So I'm going to let these things move around a little bit, but I'm not mad taking a peek right now. And I'm going by what I see on Caesar Sportsbook. Okay. Wow. That's a little bit of a spread difference here. All right. Anyways, here's what we got. Phoenix Suns plus 450, the Warriors plus 450, the Nets plus 600, the Bucks plus 650, the 76ers plus 700, the Heat plus 1,000. So I'll stop there. I can give you another team if you want it. If you're putting down a little piece right now, what are you throwing on?
I hate to go with what the favorite or the co-favorite. I would probably have to go Golden State Warriors.
It's a good
I'm
one.
going Warriors. I like the value with the Sixers if they figure it out with James Harden, but I think I'm going with the Warriors. Last year, I feel like was the Phoenix Suns' chance. It seemed like everything had kind of aligned for them to win it. And when they didn't, I know they're still really good and all that, but I'm going to go with my guy, Steph Curry, who I just watched the video where he freaking put on the most ridiculous show and warmups I've ever seen of shooting the ball from layups all the way to the half court back and like literally never touching the rim. If you haven't seen that video, you need to check it out. It's freaking amazing.
So I like that. I like that pick. I wouldn't pick the Suns, with Chris Paul being out and all that. My play would be the value play. I'm going to take the 76ers. I'm curious to see where that line's going to move, but I'll tell you this, my don't bet too much and cross your fingers, see what happens would be the Celtics plus 2,000.
Ooh.
And they're doing less with more. They're kind of, they stay healthy. I don't mind throwing down on the Celtics as a sneaky NBA finals candidate to win it, obviously.
Sneaky. I like that. And I have to say, even though I'm not from St. Louis, now that I've lived here for 14 years, so I do represent the Lou. And by far, St. Louis is, I was going to say favorite NBA Sun. You also have Bradley Beal of the Washington Wizards, but Jason Tatum, who is an absolute stud from Chaminade High School here in St. Louis. Great kid, great family. His dad's a local high school basketball coach. I remember this kid, honestly, talking about this kid when he was a freshman in high school, and he's a freaking stud. So I would love to see Jason Tatum and the Celtics make a run.
I love it. All right, buddy. I think we did it. Let's release this thing as soon as we can, so we get ahead of the MLB news or not news. And we'll see. We'll see if
what's that breaking
how
news?
hot you're.
They have a deal. Everything Charlie said is 100% wrong.
It's okay. We'll just re-record it immediately. All right, buddy. Good to see you.
You too, buddy. Look, perfect timing at the end. Right as we end, the mailman comes. My dog starts barking. That's beautiful timing.
Beautiful timing. That's why we're professionals. See you next week. It is time. Episode 7 of I Called That. I'm Martin Montana. He's Charlie Marlow. Welcome to the show, everybody. We're going to get it going. And we're just going to hit on what happened last week. I felt very good, Charlie, about the bet we placed. As you know, when I went to UVA, I thought I was doing the right thing by not being a homer and saying, sure, Duke got him last time, but let's be real. I mean, Duke's number 7 in the country. UVA is not as strong a squad this year. I mean, we're just not. I figured Duke would come back with a vengeance, have some anger, and cover. And at the time that we were doing our podcast, we talked about a line at 6.5. And I said, I would take that. I would take Duke to cover 6.5. I placed that bet.
Ooh.
Yeah, I did. I was that confident in it. And I got the line at 5.5. So I felt even better about myself. I was so confident. I didn't even watch the game until the very, a couple checks on the score. And then it was getting close. There's a few minutes left. And they're hovering around. Duke is a 4 or 5 point lead. And that's when I turned it on. I said, all right, let me just watch them close it out, go on a nice little streak here, maybe get a 6-7 point lead and get into the foul game. And let's punch it up to 9-10 points and not look back. Well, the opposite happened. They started making some bad decisions. There's a minute and something left when they, I think, had the 5-point lead. And instead, a big guy tries to go ISO, take it down one-on-one, bad shot, bad miss. Then UVA comes down and scores. And it never got even back to 4-5. Yes, Duke ends up winning, but they don't cover. And I'm watching this and I'm analyzing all the mistakes the players are making, literally in my head being like, I wouldn't have made that play. Almost like I deserve to be out there. You know what I mean? Granted, I'm even criticizing a big guy, a 6'8", 6'9" guy, which is hilarious. But do you do that? Do you actually, because I mean, I was in it in my head. I was like, I'm like, what's this guy thinking? The drive isn't there. You've got your 5-point lead, slow down, kick it out, reset, take some more time off the clock. None of that happened.
I love this visual though, of you sitting there on the couch. First of all, you probably don't even care about the game. You forgot it was even happening until, I don't know, maybe a buddy texts you, you start to watch. And at the end, what does Mike Krzyzewski know about coaching anyway? I mean, really, he's going to do that? Oh, and this player, by the way, I don't think I can name one Duke player this year. Oh, this McDonald's All-American who's going to be a lottery pick next year. What the hell are you doing, buddy? So I'm not going to lie. I kind of forgot we made that bet, but I'm glad I won. But also I feel bad because yourself, all our buddies, all these UVA buddies, they were texting on Saturday or Sunday, whenever the game was. They're like, oh my God, brutal finish to that game. And I'm just thinking, okay, whatever. Everything's brutal, right? And then I look at the finish of that game the other day where I don't even remember who you're playing.
Oh, the Florida, that's Florida State buzzer beater on us. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So Florida State, for folks that didn't see this, it really is one of those incredible, it truly is a brutal finish where you're up a couple points, 1 second?
Yeah.
Inbounds, and the dude gets a catch and heave 3-pointer that just drops at the buzzer. That is an absolutely brutal ending to a game.
It's an absolutely brutal ending. And the sick part about all this, it makes me even more excited for March Madness and to go to Vegas because I get to do that. I get to yell at college athletes that are way better than I would ever have been, coaches that do this for a living and get paid millions of dollars. But here's the beauty. When I'm quote unquote right, I take all that credit. You know what I mean? I take all of that shine and I'm saying, look at what I did. Look what I called, right? Just like the name of this podcast. And when it doesn't go, I'm breaking down the film in real time. And if they would just listen to me, if Krzyzewski would have just patched me in real time on a little earpiece, and I would have said, listen, next time out, here's what you tell your guys, because we're going to protect this 5-point lead we have. We're going to let them foul us. And we're going to cover 5.5. All right, guys, ready, break. Could you imagine if there was a coach? I know it'd be illegal, but wouldn't that be great if there was a coach who literally coached the lines and was like, I know it's illegal.
Lane Kiffin has mentioned the lines before in football. I think all the coaches know the lines. And here's why I do love gambling, because I never try to pretend I'm that great at it. And in the end, when you win on some of the crap at the end, it usually evens out on the other side of kind of the crap at the end. And by that, I mean, if it's college basketball, it's when you empty the bench, it's when you stop trying, or with football, where a team they'll just drive the ball down right till the end. They're on the 7-yard line, and then they decide to take a knee versus not taking a knee and going for that touchdown, where your bet, you either win or lose based on just the random luck of the clock versus does this team really care about trying, which is why it's so funny, because at the end of the game, let's say the spread is, I don't know, 6.5. It's a 5-point game. You're like, come on, backup guy. Like, just make one more layup. It doesn't matter at all. And then you're so happy that a guy tries versus you just know, you see, oh, that's when they're going to stop trying. They just dribble the ball up. There's 20 seconds left. They start dribbling there around half court. You're like, no, come on, one more shot.
We've all had the bad beats. The list goes on. I remember one year in Vegas, it was exactly that. The line They were, the side I'm on, we're good by 2. And there's 10 seconds. The lead the team has is, 8, 9, whatever, right? Like it's a blowout. It's done. The game is over. Nothing to see here. Move it along. Instead, they inbound, and Johnny off the bench, he sprints to the 3-point line and throws it up off glass, mind you, and good. And you hear the entire half, 75% of the sports book, we were on that bet, go, no, like we died. It was just, that's what happens. And that's why, right. I mean, this is sports betting at its finest. Like that guy destroyed the room of bettors.
That's why it's so funny. And now point shaving isn't funny, although it kind of is when you watch it back. So I don't know if you've seen this documentary. The scandal was like 25, 30 years ago at Arizona State. So there's been movies.
I did see it.
Okay. Have we talked about this on the podcast? I can't remember.
No.
But the player, and I'm forgetting his name, but he had a kind of a cool nickname. He ended up playing a little bit in the NBA. But so when he gets in deep with these gamblers, it was winning. They were winning at first, and then it didn't work out. And there was one game where, I don't know, whatever the spread was, they're clearly going to lose. So let's just say they're down 6 or 7, whatever it is. But the spread was still within reason. So with 5 seconds left, this point guard inbounds the ball and sprints down as if this is the most important basket ever. I mean, it was so obvious when you look back. It was so obvious that was strictly against the spread and just for gambling purposes. Even his teammates were like, dude, what are you doing? The game's over. Like, why do you care so much?
It was 100% obvious because he was the best player on the team. It wasn't like it would only make sense if, right, he's number 12 on the squad, and then they're like, just go in there. And then for him, he's like, look, I want to make the stat sheet. I'm going to throw up an attempt. It's a big deal to me. But to your point, he wasn't that guy. He was the star player of the entire team. It would be like, right, last second watching LeBron when he's down 8 sprint down the court to attempt a 3. I mean, everybody would look at it and be like, what's happening right now?
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. And that was a really good documentary. It makes you think. I don't think that could happen anymore these days, because I just think the money that these kids make in college with NIL now is pretty good. And also the money that officials make, but maybe if you kind of have a mid-major type school where they're not getting the NIL money, like my school of Bradley, if these Bradley kids are not making a ton of money off NIL, I could see that potentially. All you need is one friend who's a bookie, and even that story. So the player, I don't think he initially wanted to get involved, but he was apparently a gambler himself. I should look up his name. I can't remember, but he got in deep where he was down like 10K to the bookie. So he had to basically start point shaving.
I think that's correct. He was approached by those. They're basically, I mean, I guess investors, is that what you call them? They were, one of the guys was like trading options or something.
Yeah.
And then he had the bookie friend who was like, look, you really want to do it? Like, here's what we're going to do. And he got him involved. And then it was crazy. I mean, this is even back then. And wasn't he putting down like $1 million a game? Like he was pulling in all the money he could find from all the money he had made himself with trading, and then, close family, friends, whatever. I mean, he was going around, and then he had to spread it around the different sports books, so he didn't, leave too heavy a trail. And that's so intense. I mean, even if you had the right inside information, I don't have the stuff. Do you have the stomach to do that? Like to run around with a bag of $1 million in cash and, go to downtown Vegas and put down 300 grand. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm trying to find this guy's name. I know his last name was Smith. Oh, here it is. Yeah. Steven Headache Smith. That was his name.
Headache. Yeah.
Headache
that's a good
Smith,
one.
who was supposed to be a first round pick. Yeah. So no, watching that. Yeah. You had the dude who was the trader, and clearly it was working.
Yeah.
I think they won maybe 1, 2, or 3 times, but then as what always happens is all those players that were involved, I think there was Headache Smith and maybe one other player, but they start buying cars, buying
Yeah.
rims, buying jewelry. People start to notice here and there, then the money runs out. They want a little bit more. And if I'm not mistaken, and for folks listening or watching, this was a really good documentary. So they should check it out. But like they won every single time except for the last time, I believe. And the last time is when they all, of course, just took all of the winnings from all the previous bets and put it down there. And there are kids around Las Vegas, like every single person around Las Vegas is wearing an Arizona State shirt, and they're all betting on Arizona State. And I believe they even, the money was so crazy. I think it was it against Arizona State, because Arizona State was favored. So whoever they were playing that particular night, but the money was so crazy lopsided. It moved the spread something like 8 points, which is just insane.
That's an insane amount of movement. Right. That's right. That's exactly right. Because once they spread it, they can spread it out as much as they want. I mean, the books still see all what's coming in, right? So all that action was coming in on the underdog, and they're like, what? Who's taking everybody? This no-name team to cover against Arizona State, which was a good squad. They were a good team. I mean, that's absolutely nuts. I wouldn't have, it's the classic, like, Ponzi scheme, drug dealer story, all these stories of like where someone's doing something and getting away with it, and it's never enough. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Because even those investor guys, okay, they hit a couple, they had made, because they were going all in every time, but they had made millions of dollars. So you want to think like, okay, we got away with it. I got my money. It's in my hand. I'm going to step back. I'm going to walk away, but they can never. Isn't it fascinating? They can never do it. Never, not one time.
Yeah. And I also think it's because when you're in that lifestyle, if you're doing criminal behavior, whether it's gambling, also, I mean, we love to gamble, but when you're getting involved with some organized crime type folks, some bookies, those folks also, even if you get away with it at first, they're always going to get in trouble down the road, and they're always going to try to find themselves a deal, and they're always going to rat you out in the end.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a pretty good assessment. I mean, and if you come up with some insider strategy like they had, whatever it is, you don't think at some point that bookie's going to go, what are you doing? Cut me in on it. Isn't that exactly what happened? Right. The bookie was like, so what are you going to say? You know what? Hey, Tony, we got our own little thing going on here. It's kind of like a private club. So if you don't mind, we're just going to keep it to ourselves. Like, you can't. So, right. You go down this path. Good luck. I mean, good luck. That's why I'm never jealous of it. It's fascinating to look at these stories and you're like, wow, you got to have something to go for, but I don't know what your exit plan is. You better have some kind of exit plan if you're going to get into any of this. And
you could also see how it'd be so easy for Vegas to catch you. And even with the Tim Donaghy stuff, right? I mean, they just know when weird stuff is happening. So again, when you see a basketball player trying way too hard at the end of the game when it doesn't matter, but also, even though Arizona State was good at the time, and I think they were around top 25 type team, so they were pretty good.
Yeah.
But if everybody's coming to every Las Vegas casino and every single person is betting the random Washington State versus Arizona State game, like, it's not that, everybody bets the Super Bowl. Everybody bets the national championship game. Everybody bets the NCAA tournament. But if on a Tuesday night, 90% of your action is on Arizona State, Oregon State, I think people are going to realize that pretty quickly.